Just ahead on American Black Journal, African-American entrepreneur John Barfield is here to talk about his rags to riches story of success in the business world. We'll hear about a new documentary that chronicles his amazing life. Plus, there's a new campaign underway to do away with the stigma of mental health disorders. American Black Journal starts right now.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. When we think of African-American entrepreneurs in the Detroit area, one of the first that comes to mind is John Barfield. He founded what is now the Bartech Group, a global supplier of workforce management and staffing solutions. The story of John Barfield's rise to success is told in a new book titled Starting from Scratch: The Humble Beginnings of a $2 billion Enterprise. A documentary on Barfield's life will debut on Monday during a Michigan Minority Business Week event at the Charles H. Wright Museum.
I started out to do something that would benefit my family. And as a result of many good fortunes and many wonderful people that I've met along the way, I have been able to provide my family with educations and experiences that I never had.
In a country and an era riven by racial oppression and struggle, it's impossible to find a single person who can embody those times. But there is one man who comes close: John W. Barfield, born to poor Southern sharecroppers, who went on to build $1 billion international business, a family business.
John Barfield is a really impressive serial entrepreneur. I mean, he's got deep entrepreneurial genes in him. You know, here's a guy who had a newspaper route. He was a door-to-door salesman. He worked as a janitor. He's an irrepressible presence that has to succeed at entrepreneurial ventures.
Businessmen are made, entrepreneurs are born. And if you bring this back to John Barfield, he's an entrepreneur. He was born entrepreneur.
He's a gentle soul, but he has the eye of the tiger. He is truly the American dream.
My father was an extraordinary man. He was big and a powerful physique and was maybe the kindest person I've ever known. He was too kind to even spank my sister and I. That was a job that my mother had to do. They taught us a lot of principles, and I've been asked why they taught you these principles. That these were principles that were designed to protect us from God and man. Living in the South where we did, you could be lynched for nothing. We thought that Pennsylvania would be better, but we found that Pennsylvania, for my folks, was almost as bad. My father had to work almost as hard as he did in the South.
Some blues are just blues, mine are the miner's blues.
Was not the best lifestyle. Most of the coal mines paid you in script. You know, they're working 12, 14-hour days, and sometimes more than that. The life expectancy wasn't very high. There were deaths on a daily basis in most of these mines. It was probably the harshest of all the industries.
I'm pleased to have John Barfield as my guest today. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like many great success stories, yours has very humble beginnings. Born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 1927. But we were talking before the show, started, and you were telling me about being a janitor at the University of Michigan in 1949 and deciding from there to leave to start your own business. I want to start the interview there. Talk to me about what it was that it led you to make that decision and made you think this will turn out to be better than what I'm doing.
Well, I left high school after the 10th grade. I was 16 years old, and when I became 17 years old, I joined the U.S. Army, and I served for 2 years in Germany and France and came back to this country without any skills. So I applied for a job at the University of Michigan as a wall washer, and at the end of the wall washing period, I was one of the people there that was offered a job as a custodian. And I worked from 1949 to 1954 as a janitor in the chemistry building. I left that job in 1954, but the way I left it was I had to find more income because my family was growing.
Sure.
And I noticed that they were building a number of homes on the west side of Ann Arbor. So I went to the builders and I said, my name is John Barfield. I'd like to clean your houses for you. I can do them better, cheaper, and on time. Would you give me an opportunity? And they did. And I made an amazing discovery. That discovery was that I could clean 2 small homes in a day, and I was paid $35 for each. So I was able to make as much in one day working for myself as I could in a whole week working for the university.
Working for the university, right?
So that's when I decided to leave the university and to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but this is also a time when African Americans weren't assumed to be able to manage companies, to build companies. Tell me about some of the resistance that you encountered early on and sort of how you navigated around it.
Well, you're true. It was a time when African American women were thought not to be able to handle complex, profitable, large opportunities. Yeah. And it took a while before people gave me an opportunity. But I stayed with the university, and then when I left in 1954, I wrote a book called The Barfield Method of Building Maintenance, and I started cleaning commercial and industrial buildings. And 13 years after I left the University of Michigan, I was met by a number of large corporations. There were Consolidated Foods, Mackey Corporation, the Senators Corporation, International Telephone, all wanting to buy my business. So I sold the business in 1969 to IT&T for one of the largest multiples that they'd ever paid at that time for a contract cleaning service.
And how do you get from there to the Barfield Group, the Bartech Group, I should say?
In 1975, I got a call from the General Motors Corporation asking me would I be interested in coming out. They had a proposal for me. So I went out to the hydromatic plant there, and they said, would you help us find minorities and women that we could buy goods and services from? That was right after the boycott.
Yeah.
And I think our leaders went to the large corporations that we buy your goods and services, but you don't give us time. You don't give us any options.
Sure.
Unless you change that, we're going to boycott. And that's what started this minority business development program. So after a year of looking, we found only one African American, and his business was selling corrugated boxes back to the corporations. And that's when they said, John, we have a proposal for you. We'd like for you to clean up some old engineering drawings for us. And if you can do this to our satisfaction in 6 months, we'll continue to give you opportunities. And that was the beginning of the Bartech Group. We started that company with 6 students from Washtenaw Community College. In a day, that company has grown to over 3,000 employees.
Wow, wow. So, I mean, as I said in the open, I mean, you can't talk about business or black business in Detroit without talking about you and the things that you have done. It's been a long time for you, though. I mean, that you've been at this, and you've seen a lot of change over that time in the city, in business. What do you see today as the things that are either opportunities for African Americans who want to start their own businesses, or things that are still obstacles?
Well, I don't see a lot of intelligent effort going on to start black businesses. Interestingly enough, I was asked by the Detroit public school system to come up with an idea of how we could create more black businesses, particularly with the students attending high schools. And I met with them the other day and gave them an idea of embedding an entrepreneurial training program at every high school in the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
We really have to do a better job of providing opportunities for our young people.
And we don't, I mean, schools in general are not teaching kids to be entrepreneurs. I mean, they are really geared toward, you know, sending kids into careers, I think. And there's not that much focus on the idea that, well, maybe you could start your own thing and sort of control your own destiny.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I think has held us back as a people is we have not realized the true value of our time and our talents. And that's what started me off on my road to success.
Yeah.
We think that we don't realize sometimes the difference between ordinary income and meaningful wealth. What we have to begin to teach our people is that it's not about ordinary income. The whole purpose of working is to create wealth.
For yourself.
Yeah, for yourself.
And your family.
And,
right.
and until we learn to do that, we will not have the success we're looking for.
And what are some of the things that you have to think of when you're doing that? I mean, what are the practical things that you need to teach kids when they're teenagers or in high school that lead them to thinking that way?
Well, let me give you an example. I worked for the university for 6 years. And at the end of the 6th year, I was making $70 a week. Then I started my own business, and then I left the university. But if I'd worked for the University of Michigan for 14 more years, it would have been a total of 20 years. And if I had gotten a 5% increase for each one of those 14 years, at the end of a 20-year career, I would have been making $8,000 a year,
right,
which would not have been enough to provide the education for my children. So I would have been trapped. I would not have made any progress myself, and my children would not have made any progress.
Sure.
As a result of leaving, I was able to send my children to good schools. I was able to buy a nice home for my family, and I was able to enjoy some of the amenities that we all hope and pray to have. If I had continued to work for the university, none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
So we have to learn that we have only so many hours in a lifetime to work, and if you spend all of that time working as an employee of others, you will create ordinary wealth, but you won't create meaningful wealth.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be working toward.
I mean, at the same time, if you're someone who has that job that has a steady paycheck and seems to promise opportunity for growth, it can be scary to say, well, I'll give this up in favor of something that is riskier, and maybe it'll work, but maybe it'll pay me less. How do you get people to overcome that?
Well, you had to be very careful. A lot of people are encouraging people to quit their jobs and to become entrepreneurs, full-time entrepreneurs. We think that's very dangerous because most new business ventures fail.
Right?
They fail. So we encourage people not to do that, but to become part-time entrepreneurs.
Find something that you can do while you're still working.
Yes. For example, if you were a skilled worker and you made $25 an hour, and you worked for a corporation that paid you that, you should realize that I'm worth more than that. Really, what I'm worth is what my boss charges for my time.
Right.
So we try to encourage people to start their own businesses on a part-time basis, to become, if you will, a company of one.
Yeah.
To work full-time, but to spend some of your time working part-time. And when you do that, you have to realize how to charge for your services. For example, if I'm a skilled worker and I make $30 an hour, I have to realize that my employer marks my time up 150% or more, and he gets
$70 or $80.
He gets the difference between what he pays us and what he charges his other customers, and that's how he builds wealth. At the same time, the people that are providing that opportunity for him build no wealth at all.
Yeah.
So we try to get people to work for themselves on a part-time basis.
Sure. We've got about a minute left. Tell me about one thing that you say or would say to young people. I mean, looking back on your life and your career, if you had one piece of advice for young people to sort of follow in that path or to forge a different path that would be equally successful, what would that one thing be?
I would say to you that the only way that you can find the path to wealth is to realize the value of your time and your talents. That's when you can begin to move forward.
Yeah.
Not to rely on other people to tell you what you're worth, but to realize your value yourself. And to
have the confidence to do that. I mean,
to move forward.
That's one of the real hurdles, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not hard to be successful when you realize how valuable you are.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful advice, and congratulations on all your success and on the documentary.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very proud of the book, and I think it was written with humility and deference, and I think there's some good principles and some good lessons, and I hope more people will read it.
Yes.
May I have a minute to say one other thing?
Sure.
40 years ago, I made a pledge to our Rotary Club in Ypsilanti to raise enough money to provide vaccinations for 1 million African children from polio. After 2 years, we did not reach our goal, but we did raise enough money to vaccinate 497,000 African children.
Wow.
So I went to the Rotary Foundation a year ago and I said, if you will endorse my book to your 1.2 million members, I'll give you $15 of the price back for every $27 book that you sell. My goal is, and my hope is, that they will sell 5% of their Rotaries will purchase a book.
Yeah.
And if they do, it would provide about $900,000 that would be used to provide polio vaccinations for African children.
Wow.
So that's my goal.
That's an outstanding goal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here.
I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah. Coming up next, a new effort to educate African Americans on mental illness and its treatment. That's next, right after this look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1944, State Senator Charles Diggs Sr. began serving a sentence in Jackson Prison after being convicted of bribery. In 1908, legendary entertainment business owner Sonny Wilson was born. And in 1963, attorney and former State Senator Charles Roxborough died at age 75. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
An estimated 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental health disorder this year. But with proper treatment, a full recovery is possible. That's the message 2 mental health agencies want to convey, especially to African Americans who traditionally keep mental illness under wraps. The new mental health anti-stigma campaign features former NFL player Dwight Hollier as the spokesperson. Joining me now from one of the campaign partners are Sherry McGrill, President and CEO of the Northeast Guidance Center, along with Program Director Cynthia Jackson. Both you, welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
So this is an issue that I think has something in common with lots of other issues, which is that it is an issue for the general population in this country, dealing with mental illness, mental health disorders, and doing it honestly. It is a bigger problem, a bigger issue when you talk about African Americans. It is a worse problem in that community. Tell me why that's so.
Well, I think that's a problem for our community because there's such a long history of a lack of commitment to mental health. Of course, we think it's something wrong with saying that I have a mental health disorder, and oftentimes, so much of what African Americans are seeing in each other or in their family members who may have mental health disorders, they're experiencing those same symptoms themselves, and of course, I do not want to believe that there's something wrong with me.
There's not something wrong with me. There's not something wrong with my relatives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that leads us to this situation where you not only have the problem, but you have a problem identifying and confronting the problem.
Yes. And I think that the new health services campaign, which is educate, encourage, and inspire, is meant just to set out to do that. And although we know in certain, cultures that there is more of a stigma in terms of mental health issues, actually it's also one of those issues that cuts across all socioeconomic categories, all races, all religions. As Cynthia said, it's just something that folks don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
And there's 21 million Americans who are suffering from a severe mental illness, meaning that they have some form of depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder. These are serious illnesses, and we need to bring those out and talk about them and make them seen as are the rest of the medical problems that people might suffer from.
Yeah. How much of this problem do you think is attributable to the I guess, deprioritization of mental health services by government? You think about the state of Michigan, we really handle mental illness and mental health in a way that is very different than the way we used to. A lot less money, a lot fewer institutions involved. Now we turn to the correction system in many ways, and we see these very garish examples of that playing out. How much of that contributes to the stigma, though, of getting mental health help, Cynthia?
Well, I certainly believe that is something that is as much as we would like to not believe that our government does not support, I think that the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
It's the dollars, if they don't follow that individual into the community and really are available to provide not just the actual mental health services, but the campaigns that allow us to work around prevention and education of the community. Certainly, it's not perceived as an important issue.
Yeah.
And for us, of course, we know that it is, and it's something that we definitely are going to have to embrace as a community.
Talk to me about the goals of this new campaign. What are the concrete sort of goals that you're shooting for?
Well, moving more towards a positive note, although there has been decreased funding, what I would like to say is, and I've been in mental health a long time, has Cynthia, that there's actually more of a support system and a continuum of care of mental health services available than there ever has before.
Is that right?
I mean, years ago we could hospitalize people, and then we moved to having outpatient services. Today at Northeast Guidance Center alone, we have 22 programs on a continuum of care based on the severity of illness that someone might have, so that they could be in a assertive community treatment program where they're getting care from the medical team in their home. They can be in an intensive outpatient program. They can be getting home-based services, group services, substance abuse disorder services now are part of the integrated health program in behavioral health care. So in many ways, there are more sophisticated and more services available. Of course, with that comes a need for greater funding. It annoys me at times when people say the mental health system is broken. I don't think it's broken. I think it's changed. I think there's a lot more opportunities. It is unfortunate that we have the correction system now providing mental health services to a high number of folks who are there who could be in other programs. Cynthia runs some programs for us at Northeast Guidance Center that are alternatives to people going to jail. So the whole diversion movement is something very new and very exciting that wasn't here 20, 30 years ago. So we're moving in the right directions. We just need more evidence-based programming and more dollars to support that research.
Yeah. We've only got about a minute left. Tell me again, what are our concrete goals here with this new campaign? What are we hoping to to achieve?
Well, again, I think to educate, to encourage, and to inspire our consumers in the mental health system. What we want is for all persons, regardless of their condition, to be able to live a meaningful life independently in the community.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that all of us want. We want a home, a stable family life, a job, employment. That's critical for everyone. And so,
and we want people not to be ashamed to say, hey,
correct.
This is not just me being down, I need help.
And no different than, you know, a pervasive and severe mental illness should be seen no differently as I have diabetes, or I have high blood pressure, I have a mental health disorder, I have a medical condition, and we would like all those things to be, you know, seen as the same continuum of it's a medical condition, we need to accept this, give these people some supports, and move on.
Yeah, okay. Well, good luck with the campaign, and
Thank
thank you
you.
both
Thank you so
for
much.
being here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. As always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Plus, you can also hear our program on WDET 1019 FM. We will see you next time.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.